Welcome to Relationship Masterclass. Today, my name is Sam Oye, and this is Relationship Masterclass Day 16. It's amazing to realize that what was supposed to be a 5-day event is moved on to become a 16-day event with amazing results, impact on the lives of several who are watching from around the world. It gives me so much joy that you have taken the time out to tune in to this broadcast. I do hope that it's been of significant benefit to you and your loved ones. Listen, today will not be an exception, as I will be dealing with something that is causing a major ripples in several marriages and relationships. What I'm about to talk about today cuts across whether you're a single person, a single parent, you're divorced, you're separated, you're emotionally divorced, staying together in the same house, but emotionally separated from each other as a couple. If you're married, what I'm about to share today is something great impact on relationships and marriages. So I like you to stay tuned today because I've got so much to share with you. And I do hope and pray that it will make a significant difference in your life. It's not out of place now if you have a friend, a brother, a sister, someone whose marriage or relationship is going through a crisis. It's not out of place for you. Don't only share the video. That's a great thing to do. But I think if you care about someone today, you want to send them a text message or you want to put a call through to them so that they can join us live on this broadcast today. I promise you, what I'm about to share will go to the foundation of the many crises in marriages and relationships. Before we get started, it's my custom to always bring to you something of great concern to some persons who perhaps are reaching out to me in need of help. So here we have a situation where someone is saying, hey, Pastor, my wife likes to spend a lot, and I like to manage money for the family. And my wife always feels that as I try to manage, that I'm trying to keep money away from her. And this is causing ripples in our marriage, in our relationship. I'm trying to save, and I try to let her know that I'm saving for the family. But my wife is always creating a ripple in the marriage because she believes that I am only trying to be a stingy person. I am miserly. Pastor, what should I do? If you are in my situation, what would be your counsel to such a man? If you are in my situation, what counsel would you give to the man? I'm watching out for all of you on Facebook and YouTube. Like to hear what your thoughts are. What should I say to a man whose wife thinks he is miserly, whereas the man is just trying to be protective of the family? He is trying to keep money. He is trying to manage money in the interest of the family. What should I say to the man? What would be your best advice to such a family? Meg, on YouTube, I'm waiting for you. Jana, I'm also waiting for you. So just go ahead and let me know what you will advise that I do. What should I say to these individuals? What would you recommend? I'm watching out for your counsels. I'm looking out on Facebook, waiting for the wise ones on Facebook. I'm waiting for the wise ones on YouTube. What would you expect me to say. Auntie Mary Colo said, sit down together and talk. Explain to her step by step why you are doing what you are doing. Thank you so very much. That is really beautiful. I appreciate that. Someone is asking that there be more volume. Okay, there's a need for volume. All right. I guess, let me know now, all of you on Facebook. Let me know if the volume is okay now. Just say okay. Ntombi said, explain to her, according to the story, there's no communication in the marriage. Sit her down and explain to her. Thank you so very much for that perspective. Janie, thank you so very much for letting me know that the volume is good now. McKinley, thank you so very much for letting me know that the volume is great now. Go ahead. Listen, today is going to be one of the most remarkable teachings. One of the most remarkable teachings you've heard in a long time about marriage and relationship. So get ready, get your writing materials, whatever you have to do, get ready and get your friends on board. Chioma said, do the family budget together. Chioma, thank you so very much. Do the family budget together. Oh man, Chioma, you are such a fantastic. Listen, you just help all the others to put everything in perspective. Auntie Mary said, we need to talk together. Fantastic. Every other person said, we need to communicate. But here's the case now. You are giving us substance, giving us what to communicate about. So bringing all your answers together, I think that we're having a great answer. Thank you all so very much. You're making my job easy. So Chioma said, do the family budget together. Give her a part of the responsibility. Chioma, thumbs up. Is that okay? Let her be a part of the executors. Let her be one of the executors. Don't just execute alone. Get her on board to execute. Give her a part of the responsibility of purchasing the things on the budget. That way, she feels she's spending the money. Oh, Chioma, you're such a sweet darling. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Olayinka, good to see you. Watching with your precious wife. I guess you are with your wife. Jessica Olayinka, quite a while, my brother, all the way from South America. God bless you. Damola said he has to be transparent with the lady. Show her evidence of his savings. Damola, that is very great. Because sometimes the reason why your spouse feels that you are hiding money is because she doesn't know how much you are worth. All right? So if she doesn't know how much you're worth, she's always going to assume that you're keeping money from her. Very great perspective. You are all such a wonderful group of people. Amazing. Print of your goals to her and let her know what your budget is for. Amazing. This is really, really impressive. The man should have known this before marriage. However, do the family budget together. Shine Chris, never assume that someone should know. The reality is that many of us were not prepared for this. That what causes marriage, crisis in relationship, is when as a lady, you come into relationship assuming a man should have known. Never assume he should know. Never assume a woman should know the realities that many don't know. Wow, this is becoming interesting. Wonderful. This is becoming interesting. All right. Barakumo said he has to explain Proverbs chapter 21 verse 20 to her, which says, there is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spends it all. Fantastic perspective. I love all of your perspectives. That need to make sure we communicate. Need to make sure that we budget together. Chioma on YouTube said, he should carry the woman along by letting her know about the project that needs to be done. Chioma, thank you so very much for that on YouTube. Nazoski said on YouTube, she needs financial education so that they can be on the same page. I agree with you. Very, very wonderful. Wow. Thank you all so very much. We've all brought in perspective to this whole situation. And I want to let you know that your answers are all absolutely correct. All right? So what we're going to do now, Daryl Taylor said, when was the last conversation you and your spouse had that brought real and positive change to your home, your marriage, and your lives? In essence, what Daryl is saying is that you should converse. You should talk together. So it goes down to the same thing. Budget together, talk together, and participate together. So never forget that. Budget together, talk together, and do it together. You want to write that down. In order to resolve marriage challenges, budget together. Make sure that you talk together, plan together, and execute together. Very powerful perspective. Budget together, plan together, make sure that you talk together and execute together. All right, so let's get down to what we have to do today. If you have not shared the video yet, would you go ahead and do that so that we don't have to waste our times in the broadcast doing all of this. If you have not shared the video, kindly please use this moment to share the video. Promises to be a fantastic class today. I'll be dealing with a subject that is affecting so many marriages and relationships. I just hope it's not hanging on your end. I just hope it's what my own stuff that is hanging here. I just hope everything is running smoothly on every side. Okay? Today, I want to talk to you about what I call family patterns and negative family patterns. Take note of that. Negative family patterns and their effects on relationships and marriages. Write that down, please. Type it out so that somebody else can see the title. Negative family patterns and their effects on relationships and marriages. That's what we're going to be dealing with today. Trust me, this will really, really help you today. Negative family patterns and their effects on marriages and relationships. Let me use a biblical foundation for our conversation today. Matthew chapter 3 in verse 10, and I will read. Now the axe is laid to the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree, watch this, the axe is laid to the root of the tree. Therefore, every tree which doesn't bring out good fruits shall be cast into the fire. Don't miss this now. Every tree has branches and fruits. The same tree has roots. If the tree is not bearing good fruits, stop struggling with the fruits and the branch. Reach down to the roots of the tree. Roots. Someone needs to take note of that. The reason the branch is producing a wrong fruit is because there's something wrong with the root. Follow me carefully today. In Romans chapter 11, verse 16 to 19. Romans chapter 11 in verse 16. Particularly verse 16. If the first fruit is holy, the lump shall also be holy. If the root is holy, the branches will also be holy. Remember the other scripture. If you don't like what you are seeing on the branches, the fruits, put the axe to the roots. Number two, if the root is holy, the branches will also be holy. There is a connection between the branch you see and the root you don't see. Behaviors are based on beliefs. Beliefs are the ones that undergirds values. I'm going to break it down. Whenever you see behaviors are actually as a result of beliefs. Beliefs our values. Values power behaviors. So if you see a behavior you don't like, understand that there is a value system that is driving the behavior. And that value system is driven by beliefs, set of beliefs. Your beliefs will influence your values. Your values will influence your behaviors. If you want to change behaviors, change values. If you want to change values, change beliefs. In the same vein, I'm very slow so you can get it. In the same vein, if you don't like the fruit, check the branch. If you don't like the branch, check the root. The root powers the branch. The branch powers the fruit. Every man's behavior, every woman's behavior comes from somewhere. One, it comes from your family background. Two, it comes from your beliefs. Three, it comes from your values. I'm going to say that again. Your behavior is a function of your family background. Your behavior is a function of your set of beliefs. Your behavior is a function of your value system. If you hate your behavior or you hate the behavior of someone, stop attacking the behavior. Address the value system. And in all value system, you need to deal with the sets of beliefs. And those beliefs most times come from the families that we come from. Today, I want to deal with something called family patterns, negative family patterns, and how they affect your relationship and your marriage. Trust me, this is going to be a great time today. Family patterns, marriage, and relationship. Let me share something with you in 2 Timothy chapter 1 in verse 5. And I'm going to use the Passion Translation. They will put it on the screen for you. 2 Timothy chapter 1 in verse 5. I will use the Passion Translation. Paul was talking to Timothy, and this is what Paul said to Timothy. Timothy, as I think of your strong faith, I'm seeing the way you behave. I'm seeing the faith you are exhibiting. I notice that faith, your strong faith, was passed down. Very powerful word. It was passed down through your family line. Watch that. Your strong faith was passed down through your family line. It began, watch this, it began with grandmother Lois. It was passed on. It began from your grandmother. It was passed on to your dear mother, Eunice. And it is very clear that you too, you are following in the footsteps of their godly example. This is very powerful. Now listen carefully. Paul said, Timothy, there is something I'm observing in you. I have observed that you have strong faith. He said, but Timothy, as I observe you, I notice that the faith, the strong faith that you are exhibiting, I notice that it's not starting from you. I can trace it down to your grandmother. And I realize also that it started from your grandmother. And I also observed that it was passed down to your mother. And it's amazing that your mother also passed it down to you. Oh, come on, somebody's getting it right now. It is passed down. Strengths and weaknesses are usually passed down. The strength of a previous generation will usually be passed down to the next. In the same vein, the weakness of the generation will also be passed down. If the apostle was to speak to David, or maybe Solomon, if Paul was to speak to Solomon, I guess Paul would have made a statement like this: Solomon, this love for women that I see in your life, I observe that it's like it was in your grandfather, Jesse, because there seemed to be a controversy about your father's birth, David. Well, if that was a confusion, observe that this issue with women, this negative family pattern, Solomon, I can see that it was also in your father. Okay, If Paul the apostle was to talk to Jacob or the sons of Jacob, I guess Paul will put it like this. Hello, Simeon and Reuben. This lying spirit, all of you, 10 of you, lied to your father Jacob that your brother is dead. Guys, 10 of you, I can tell you that this lying thing that I see in you guys is a negative family pattern. It was first in your grandfather or your great-grandfather Abraham. He also lied. And I observe also that under the same circumstance, your grandfather Isaac also lied. And I observe also that your father Jacob became a liar. You see, it's a negative pattern in your family. It's a bloodline pattern. See, the point I'm making is every man needs to check what has been passed down to you, strength or weaknesses. The ripples in your marriage, the conflicts in your marriage may be a reflection of an unchallenged weakness that has been passed down from generation to generation uncontested. I'm going to be very slow about this so you get it. Every man watching right now, every woman watching right now, the ripples, the conflict in your relationship today might be as a result of some unchallenged and uncontested negative family patterns that have been running loose from your great-grandfather to your grandfather to your father. And look at your life now. Your marriage, your relationship is a playing ground for the same weakness. Someone needs to look at that weakness and say, hey, you know what? This marks your end. My children will not have to deal with this. Wow. I guess this is getting across. I promised you that was going to be a great session we're going to be having today. And trust me, we have a lot to deal with by the grace of God. So if you, as I'm speaking, if you have a sibling, you have a brother, a sister, you have someone you care about, get them on board and let them join us. So there is something called negative family patterns, and it affects marriages and relationships. Let me say to some of you watching me right now, the current conflict in your relationship might not be from you. It might be coming through you. It might be something flowing from generation past that nobody has stood up to and contested with and brought to a standstill. And because nobody has been able to deal with it, your marriage is now a playing field where negative generational patterns are finding expression. Abraham's wife was barren, Sarah. Isaac's wife was barren. And then you find Jacob with two women barren in his life. We're talking about negative family patterns. So take note of this. What are negative family patterns? Write this down. Negative family patterns are attitudes that repeat themselves. are negative attitudes that repeat themselves in a family line. Just like the positive attitude or positive strength in the life of Timothy came from his grandmother to his mother into his life, even so, we have negative family patterns as negative attitudes that repeat themselves. There are families that have negative attitudes. Arrogance. Daddy was arrogant, proud, insensitive to people's feelings. His grandfather was the same. And here you are as a son. Your father, your mother's greatest concern was that your father was grossly insensitive to her feelings. And you are repeating the same. Attitudes, negative attitudes that repeat themselves in bloodlines, that repeat themselves in family lines, so much so that they affect relationships and marriages. So negative family patterns include negative attitudes that repeat themselves in families, in bloodlines, in lives, in individuals. Negative family patterns include negative behaviors, negative attitudes, and negative behaviors, negative perceptions. Those are some of the expressions of negative family patterns. They include negative perceptions, the way you look at life, the way you view human beings. Your mother never trusted men, and your mother has passed it on to you. You see men as cheats. You see all men as liars, including the innocent husband that you have, who has no track record of what you have a perception of him of. Negative family patterns include negative thought patterns, pessimistic way of thinking. Your father was always ever pessimistic. Mother was always ever pessimistic. Whenever there is something positive to pursue, they are always looking for the negative side. Here you are also. Whenever something positive is being discussed in your office, you are always the wet blanket. It seems you are wired to see why things should not work. You seem to be wired to see things failing as against seeing them succeed. Your first default setting is that something won't work except if it is from you. Anytime people are excited about something they want to do, so long as it's not your way, you will always want to cast aspersion on their perception. It's not from you, it's flowing through you. It started somewhere. Elisha said something. The men of the city came to Elisha. I think it's 2 Kings chapter 3. The men of the city came to him and they said, "Sir, in every house in our city, the water we are drinking is not good. The water is bad." You know what Elisha said? He said, "If the water in your house is bad, where did you get it from?" And they took Elisha to the source, the fountain. When Elisha poured salt in the fountain, the source, the water of the nation was healed. Sometimes you need to pull back in order to go forward. If you don't know where you got it from, it might be difficult for you to get rid of it. So what are negative family patterns? Negative family patterns are weaknesses, negative weaknesses, limitations, battles, challenges that repeatedly affect a relationship or marriage. I'm going to say that again. Negative family patterns are negative attitudes, negative behaviors, negative perceptions, negative, actions that have the capacity to affect relationships and marriages over time. There are 3 things I have written down that I want you to take note of when we are dealing with negative family pattern. Number 1, negative family patterns will keep repeating themselves until somebody identifies and confronts them. Negative family patterns will keep repeating themselves. They will keep repeating themselves in your relationship and marriage until you identify them, stop excusing them, and confront them. Number 2, negative family patterns cannot be dealt with until you are able to identify, number 1, how they affect your predisposition. How they affect your predisposition. How you see things. Until you are able to identify that, you may not be able to deal with negative family patterns. Let me say something here. Every negative family pattern you excuse will keep you in captivity. In essence, the first step towards dealing with negative family patterns includes identifying them. What are the attitudes from my bloodline that affects relationship that I'm exhibiting? What are the behaviors? What are the lifestyles? What are the weaknesses? What are the proclivities, the predispositions of my bloodline that is affecting my relationships and my marriage? What did my mother complain about concerning my father? I hope that my wife is not complaining about the same in my own life. What did my father complain about my mother? I hope that my fiance is not complaining about the same in my life. That is your acid test. What did people complain a lot about my father? His behavior, his attitude. What did people complain a lot about? I hope that my colleagues, my church members, my neighbors, I hope they are not complaining about the same in my life. So in dealing with negative family patterns, you have to be sincere with yourself and recognize that almost all of us came from family backgrounds with certain negative weakness. Your assignment is to identify the weakness, eliminate it so that your strengths can be maximized. Every weakness you don't deal with, in the next generation, it will weaken your strength. David was a man after God's heart, but he had a major negative pattern. Women. Even though he was a man after God's heart, Because he did not deal with the issue of women, the Bible says Solomon's love for God was overturned by the love for women. The weakness you don't deal with will deal with the successive generation. The weakness you don't deal with, it will deal with your successive generation. Abraham lied to one man. Isaac lied to one man. Jacob, watch this. Abraham lied to an outsider. Isaac lied to an outsider. Jacob lied to an insider, his own father. The 10 sons of Jacob lied to Jacob. You can see how weakness multiplies across generations. David, he slept with few women outside of marriage. By the time we got to Solomon, he had 1,000 to take care of himself. Weaknesses multiply across generations. The United States has very beautiful strengths in its foundation. At the same time, there were some weaknesses in the foundation of the United States. Guess what has happened? Over the years, the strengths are diminishing. The weaknesses are getting amplified. Nigeria, at the beginning of our nation's inception, there were weaknesses surrounding our nation's homogeneity. There were weaknesses around whether we are a federation or a regional, aggregation. That weakness was there, even though we came together for an independence. Guess what? Over 40 years later, we are still dealing with the weakness of that foundation. We are still dealing with regional issues. The problem of Nigeria today was actually the problem of Nigeria in the 50s into the early 60s. We are literally watching the weakness in our foundation almost destroying our generation. Never ignore your weakness. It has the potential to destroy your next generation. The saddest part about family patterns is that sometimes you will have to be alive to watch your weakness explode in children. That is the saddest part. That what you did not contain, what you did not address, the saddest part is that you are alive to watch your children, like David was alive to see his son Absalom carry his own concubines, the concubines of his own father. He laid them on top of the roof in Israel. He slept with the women in public daylight. What an embarrassment to a father, that your son will be sleeping with women publicly. Well, daddy, you did it privately, and you never stopped it privately. Now it has exploded publicly, unfortunately, in your lifetime. What weakness are you covering? What weakness are you managing? What weakness are you protecting? A young girl called me recently from one of the states in Nigeria here. Recently I got calls from two girls. Heartbreaking calls. The first one, she called me and she said, Pastor, I'm in the university. Something heartbreaking has just happened to me. I said, what is it? She said, Pastor, I just suddenly discovered that my mother is having affairs. She said, I found it on my mother's phone that my mother will always tell us that she's traveling from Benue State to Abuja to come and see her own sister. That little did I know that my mother is having an affair with a young man that is several years younger than she is, leaving my father at home. Listen to what broke my heart. She said, Pastor, my mother was my idol. Talking about idols, please, I beg you in the name of the Lord, don't miss tomorrow's prayer in the morning. What a moment we are today. What a moment we are today. If you didn't watch today's broadcast, watch it before you sleep. And join us 5 a.m. tomorrow, Nigerian time. God is taking us into the depths of his presence. The girl said, she said, Pastor, my mother was my idol. My mother is a church woman. What do you think will be happening to the psyche of that girl? And then just about 2 months ago, I got another disturbing call. 3 a.m. in the morning, a young girl had called me and said, Pastor, I need to talk with you. And I said, what is it all about? Why are you calling so early? And she said, I am shaken. I am traumatized. I said, what? She said, my father, who has been my hero for 22 years, a man of repute in the society, I can't even mention his name because he's known publicly as one of the most celebrated lawyers in this city wherein I live. She said, Pastor, my father was in his study room and he did not know he left his door a little bit ajar, and he was having a conversation with a small girl. And listen to what his father was saying. He was telling the girl how that he enjoyed the blow job that the girl gave him the day before. Listen to this. She said what broke her heart was the fact that her father was saying to this girl that he enjoyed it and he's coming again tonight, and that the father said even though he's supposed to take his son to the university the next day, the father said he will push that responsibility to his wife so that he can spend Saturday with this of his was listening to her father. She was shaken and she went to her mother. That matter created a major ripple in that marriage. The point I'm making is the weakness you don't conquer in your lifetime, your children will live to fight. The battles you don't win, your children will have to deal with. The challenge is this: whatever you don't deal with in your lifetime gains strength when it gets to your children's generation. It becomes stronger. What are some of the common negative family patterns? What are some of the common negative family patterns that some individuals are dealing with today? What are some of the negative family patterns? I want to mention them to you quickly. Number one, there seems to be in some families a negative pattern of abuse. Verbal abuse. Your father, when he opens his mouth to insult the children or your mother, the words are so demeaning, derogatory words, words that breaks down a human being, words that have no regard for the human dignity. Sadly, you are almost like a chip from the old block. You also use derogatory words now on your spouse, on your children, on the people around you. It's a negative family pattern. Unfortunately, children who grew up in homes where there's verbal abuse, abuse has become so normal to them, such that when they are abusing their partner, they don't see it as anything wrong. Have you studied to understand what the negative pattern is in your bloodline? In some family, the pattern is abuse, verbal abuse. Some is physical abuse. Your father was physically abusive. Your mother was physically abusive. Unfortunately, you're doing the same. Let's get on to the next one. We have also what is called sexual abuse. It runs in some bloodlines. So you find out that there's some trend of molestation running from grandfather to father, and now happening to you also. We also have what we call a negative family pattern of sexual promiscuity. Your father was polyandrous, polygamous, had several wives, multiple concubines. Your mother perhaps was polyandrous. She had several husbands, or had relationship with several men and have several children from several men. Here you are also. You're finding it difficult to stay with one man. It's a pattern in a bloodline. It's a negative family pattern, and it can destroy a relationship. Number three, there is what we call a negative family pattern of poor decision making. Poor decision making. Your father was gifted, your mother was gifted, they all had opportunities, but the major challenge had been that they always make poor judgments, poor decisions. You hated it, but you are expressing it. You are also making poor judgments, poor investment, poor choice in relationship, poor career choice. It's a negative pattern in the bloodline. Someone needs to identify it, and with our redemption in Christ, confront it and conquer it. My goodness. Number four is what I call the negative pattern of irresponsibility. There are family patterns of irresponsibility. Remember Judah. The Bible says Judah's son slept with his daughter, with his wife Tamar. He did not impregnate her. The second one came. When it was time to impregnate her, he spilled on the bed and God killed him. And Judah quietly excused his daughter-in-law, not wanting his third son to be responsible for her, and not wanting to be responsible for the girl also. He told her to go to her family. Judah, there's a problem of irresponsibility there. Finally, when Judah's wife died, The Bible said Judah was going to visit his friend. And Judah saw a lady dressed like a prostitute, not knowing that was his daughter-in-law. And Judah went into her and wanted to have an affair with her. And she said, hey, money. And Judah said, I have no money, but I promise you I will pay. She said, I know this family very well. You are a family of irresponsible men. If I'm going to let you sleep with me, give me your staff, give me your ring. Your family has a way of evading responsibility. It was so bad that after Judah impregnated and she gave birth, he was still trying to deny the baby. Irresponsibility. There are families where the men are grossly irresponsible. They don't take responsibility. The women carry the burden. The women do the job. The men like to dress good, but they don't pay for it. They don't like anything stressful, but they like to live big. They don't like, listen, when it's time to pay school fees, that's when the man gets malaria. He will be sick until the school fees is paid. When it's time to pay house rent, that's when he's away on a mission to look for something. And then by the time the wife pays the house rent, he's back home. Doesn't know how the food comes into the house, but makes the man on specific meals. How he wants his food to have cheese and eggs and have chicken on it, and he didn't pay for it. There are irresponsible bloodline patterns. We have some women too who come from families where the women are grossly irresponsible. They just give birth to children but never stay to take care of their kids. Never wanted to carry out their responsibilities. Oh my goodness. Because of my time, let me quickly mention a few others. We also have negative patterns of rigidity, inflexibility. There are families where the men, the women there are very rigid, strongly opinionated. They don't bend, they don't listen to somebody else's idea. What you have to say, they don't care about it. Their opinion is final. Their perspective is what rules. Rigidity, inflexibility, financial indiscipline. It runs some bloodline. Financial indiscipline, borrowing, indebtedness, spending without budget, impulsive buying. It runs in the bloodline. Not only that, addictions and secret sins. These are some family patterns. Addictions. Daddy was addicted to alcohol, to cigarette, to marijuana. The same thing is going on. You are addicted to some kind of things that gets you high. May not be drugs. It may just be differently. Number 10, decide to lead differently. There's so much I still have to share.